Welcome to the C-Suite, where we're helping women to create choices in their careers. I'm Danielle Shaw. Our first guest is all about recognition, and she has taken her career from organizational design into really helping organizations to have sustainable recognition programs so that they can attract and retain amazing talent and clients. Here to talk about recognition is Chief Recognition Officer from Greatness Magnified, Sarah McVanel. Welcome, Sarah, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
This is a great conversation to have because recognition is something that it's those small little things that you can do as an organization that make a huge impact.
Yeah. Well, and certainly as senior leaders, we want to be known as trusted advisors, people that can rely on us for mentorship. And so there's a relational component that we can use to build our careers and stronger relationships, which inevitably benefit the organization too, increases trust and loyalty, and our customers can see it too. So there's really no downside to recognition, which is why so many organizations are talking about it now more than ever, despite the challenges of our current context.
hmm And when you talk about recognition, can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, we often talk about rewards and recognition almost as if it's the same thing. Rewards tends to be the things that we can touch, feel, plan. There's a budget attached to it. It may be an event. It could be an award, a bonus package, and some organizations really focus on that. And there's nothing entirely wrong about that as long as it's not the way that we appreciate people around here. The other thing is what can happen, particularly as economic changes happen in an industry or just frankly, our global economies, is that some of those things get pulled back. So if we relied heavily on them, it really is breaking the social contract with employees and with middle managers and leaders. So really what I talk a lot more about is the sustainable part of appreciation, and that is recognition, which is not so much transactional in nature. It's based on those micro moments of appreciation. It's how we take a corporate event and we make it more human by mentioning people pronouncing their names right and customizing, having people write a little note of thank you to the people who are receiving an award. So it can beautifully go hand in hand, but recognition really, it's things like saying thank you, writing a personalized card. It's customizing, making something timely and personal. People minimize how important that is, but let's face it, when you think about your career, do you remember how much money you made in 2006 when you got that bonus, or do you remember the gift that the little note that you got from your boss? I don't know about you, but I remember the second one.
Yes. And it's so true. I remember I had a former leader and she gave us these little cards, like these inspiration affirmation cards. And I still have them to this day. And it's been 5+ years.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a good way actually of bottom lining it. I like that. So will I be able to remember this in 5 years? And if the answer is yes, then it's recognition likely, and probably not on the reward side of things. And also it's a test about how well we do it, because if you can't remember it, then really how meaningful was it?
hmm And when you talk about helping organizations to create these sustainable recognition programs, kind of what does sustainability look like and how does that happen?
Well, the great news is that most organizations have something to build from. They have rituals and things that are working. And so my very first thing is to pull apart those things and surface what's working and why it's working, because a lot of folks have legacy programs and they don't know if it's working or why it's working. And similarly, it could be working in parts of the business. I remember working with a large global mining company, and they had this tradition of buying jackets, and some of the longest mines in the business, that was a badge of honor, because almost the whole community worked in the mines and they had generations of those jackets. Well, people at head office downtown Toronto are not going to wear one of those jackets, nor does that new mine in Indonesia that just had joined the company a few years ago. That was not going to be their language of appreciation. They don't wear jackets, nor do they understand the value of it. So part of what I do is I help people see what's working, what are your legacies, traditions that you may not even realize you have or remember who built them and why. Keeping the things that are working, allowing for some customization based on what's needed in different parts of the business, but then also hardwiring in those relational pieces. So how do we reinforce to leaders the importance of a thank you and being visible, and building in some handwritten notes, or perhaps if you're all remote and you never physically see each other, or you're in different parts, different locations, building some kind of meaningful fun kudos boards or connective rituals.
Since you mentioned COVID, with this whole shift to working from home, how has that impacted recognition?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that. There's actually some interesting research. I'm releasing the second edition of my first book, Forever Recognize Others' Greatness. And we've actually found, for the first time since I've been studying with this particular organizational engagement survey database company, first time we've seen organizational engagement increase. In other words, job engagement, how connected people are with their job and their colleagues and what they do and who they serve, that can go up for sure, understandably. However, connection to the organization, not so much. This is the first time in history we've seen that go up, and not just a little bit, a significant amount. And what they're calling that is the gratitude effect. So, on a macro level, what we're seeing is when people can come together for a shared sense of purpose, we all need to go from bricks and mortar to remote. How well did we do that as a collective, as a collaborative? Healthcare organizations or other not-for-profits, how did we make sure that we stayed true to our mission and serve well despite the challenges? And so that's sort of on a micro level. On micro, people are doing things like using kudos boards instead of, let's say, going out for their ritual for celebrating somebody's retirement, or Friday, drinks after work. They would create their own traditions, but remote.
So, really, we talked a lot about kind of recognizing and increasing engagement for employees that are already in the organization. How do you use recognition to really attract really that best talent?
My favorite story, and again, this is a homegrown story as a result of COVID. When you can't interview people in face to face, you just lose that human connection. So, a not for profit that I worked with at the beginning, they hired me to help humanize their recruitment process. They had a lot of leadership vacancies, and that was really struggling, making the organization struggle. So, they decided to begin appreciating people at every stage of the recruitment process. So somebody applied, send a thank you for applying, as opposed to the you're lucky, well, don't talk to us, we will talk to you kind of, barrier there, which that never makes anybody feel good. Why did that become part of our practice? But anyway, they started sending thank you cards at that point. And then if somebody was made it to the first interview, then they get a thank you card. And then, again, if they were in the next interview. So before they had these leaders got to the final stage of being given the job offer, they had received multiple thank yous from different people. Guess how many leadership vacancies they have right now? They had 5 before COVID out of 22 leadership positions. Guess how many they have now? Vacancies.
I'm going to say zero.
Zero. Exactly.
Yeah.
People felt so appreciated and welcome to the organization. Now, of course, there's still struggles because you can't physically see people, the people that you're leading, you can't actually be in the same room with them. I mean, it's understandable. However, how many of us have thought about, how do I really honor and cultivate the experience of humanizing our organization so that people know who we are and what we're all about and feel connected to us before their first day? In fact, they even have somebody, they mask up, they have somebody meet them at the front door and do the tour, the physically socially distanced tour. They never did that before. And instead, it's like you show up and you're like, hello, is anybody here? Oh, who are you again? So they will never get rid of that practice. And I've shared that with many people in my keynotes, and people are like, yes, we should be doing that. Even remote folks, people who are still working on site because they're an essential service, they're like, yes, we should be doing that too.
Thank you so much for really talking about what recognition is and how organizations can really build these sustainable practices into what they do. So thank you so much for being here today,
My
Sarah.
pleasure. Thanks for asking the questions. I appreciate it.